Well, hey there, you vinyl maniacs. This week's show is brought to you in part by our friends at AudiofileUSA.com. Check out the new website at AudiofileUSA.com. Now it's even easier to dig and find the deals and use discount code TheVinylGuide to save an extra 10%. That's AudiofileUSA.com. And we're also brought to you today by the Groove Washer, the world's most beloved record cleaner. Recently awarded 5 out of 5 stars from Rolling Stone magazine for vinyl record care. Plus, check out the new Groove Guard record sleeves, now at a low introductory price at GrooveWasher.com. Discount code VinylGuide10. Thank you, sponsors. And with that, on with the show. Well, hello there, peoples. Welcome to episode 317 of The Vinyl Guide, the podcast where we talk records, music history, and more with the people who were there in the room when the music was made. My name is Nate. I'm an OCD record collector who loves my vinyl, and I'm constantly looking to learn more from my heroes. And today is a great example of that. Bruce Botnick, producer, engineer, and fellow audio maniac, joins us to deep dive into his work with The Doors and discuss the 50th anniversary reissue box set of L.A. Woman, the final studio album by all 4 original members of The Doors and an amazing bookend to their recording career. Bruce worked with The Doors throughout their career, starting with their debut album originally as an engineer before being flung into the producer seat for L.A. Woman. Now, with that sort of experience, nobody knows The Doors like Bruce does. So, today we're going to set aside his work with other stellar artists like the Beach Boys, Love, all the film scoring and soundtrack work, and today we're going to focus on The Doors with Bruce. We're going to hear from him what the L.A. Woman sessions were like, what it was like to work with Jim Morrison, what he was doing in the studio, how the L.A. Woman sessions were different. We talk about The Doors master tapes, what's there, what's missing. We go into the details of the 50th anniversary L.A. Woman box set, the quality control for vinyl cutting and production for modern day Doors records, and heaps more. And if it's not already clear, there is a brand new box set, The Doors 50th anniversary of L.A. Woman. It's put out by Rhino Records. It's a phenomenal box set. You could pull it up on your streaming services right now. The music has never sounded crisper, and it comes with a vinyl issue of the album, 3 discs of outtakes, remasters, and alternative versions, like 2 extra hours of material that's never been heard before. It's an absolutely fascinating look at the development and maturity of all these songs that we know so well. And by the way, this isn't a box set just for hardcore Doors fans. I actually don't even put myself in that category. I'm a normal, even maybe casual fan of The Doors, and I still find this L.A. Woman box set extremely compelling and deeply enjoyable. Plus, it comes with a booklet with lots of pictures, stories, and background of the record, and I love that stuff. So, grab a copy of the 50th anniversary L.A. Woman box set from your local record store, or head over to store.rhino.com and grab one direct from Rhino Records. And finally, I'm asking each of you to please subscribe and follow the Vinyl Guide podcast. It's free, it's easy. We have over 300 episodes that you can enjoy anytime, including conversations with The Doors' own Robbie Krieger, episode 306 of the Vinyl Guide, Tom Scholes of Boston, episode 297 of the Vinyl Guide, Billy Gibbons of ZZ Top, episode 293 of the Vinyl Guide, Rick Nielsen of Cheap Trick, episode 266, Andy Partridge of XTC, episode 255, and heaps more. Follow and subscribe to the Vinyl Guide and enjoy these episodes and more anytime. Oh, and by the way, we have a Vinyl Guide Patreon site, patreon.com/vinylguide. Even though I give these interviews away freely, I'm always putting extra stuff, extended interviews, and more, and it's only available to our Patreon supporters at patreon.com/vinylguide. So if you like what we do and you want to keep the Vinyl Guide going, head up to patreon.com/vinylguide. And by the way, I'm going to give all our supporters of $5 a month or more a quick shout out at the end of today's episode. So please, if you're not already a member, you could join this magnificently handsome group of Patreon supporters at patreon.com/vinylguide. And thanks in advance. And with that, let's talk Doors, L.A. Woman, and more with legendary engineer, producer, and fellow audio and record nerd, Mr. Bruce Botnick.
Nate.
Bruce! How are you, sir?
Good, thank you. And how are you?
I'm doing good. Look at you, dashing as ever.
Yeah, thank you. What's new in your world?
I've been listening to this 50th anniversary LA Woman recording, and it's marvelous. It sounds wonderful. I've been listening to the additional materials, the outtakes, the formations of the songs, and I found it really interesting just how the Doors arrived at that final version I've listened to for years. LA Woman's always been one of my favorite albums of theirs, and now you can see kind of the build-up towards that. Mm-hmm. Yeah. What was it like for you revisiting those tapes after so long?
Well, I heard a lot of things that I had never heard before. Mm-hmm. At least I'd heard them, but I didn't, focus on them. I mean, especially in also mixing it for Atmos. There's all kinds of things that the fans, when they hear it, will go, "Oh my God, I didn't know that was there." Mm. Because when you're in the stereo mode or mono, things are on top of one another, or hopefully back or front. And our goal in stereo is to try to create dimension, so that you can go in there and really hear everything really well. So, but the outtakes themselves were fun because there's actually some really, really great feeling takes on Changeling. Mm-hmm. And I mean, for all you vinyl folks, we did master all those outtakes in vinyl for vinyl, which will be coming this coming year.
Oh, excellent. Okay, because right now there's the one vinyl and 3 CDs, but
right.
we're thinking a more expanded box set's going to be available in the coming months or whenever.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, the whole process for this album that I've been doing for the last 3 albums has been to transfer everything to 384 32-bit digital, not anything low. To try to get as close as we can to the analog. I mean, the tapes are aged now, mm-hmm. and every time they're played, there's a little bit less that plays off of them. I don't mean it's losing oxide. It's just, magnetism being what it is. And able to go through and take out ticks and pops and, clean it up and make it as virginal as possible. And then master with Bernie Grunman and get pressings from Germany.
Going into these sessions, LA Woman, the story of the Doors has always been very interesting, especially around this time, because this album, no one knew it was going to be their last, obviously. I imagine that was a very different band entering the studio or starting to record LA Woman than you met doing the debut. Yeah? Yeah.
They were very relaxed because we were in a situation where we were making the album together. Nobody was telling us what to do. There was no clock on the wall. And as it turned out, it was a very workman's-like day where we'd come in after lunch and work until it wasn't feeling good anymore, and then go home. Mm-hmm. At real hours. And Jim was very enthusiastic and not getting inebriated, was there on all the time. In fact, if anything, he was there early.
Mm. Was Jim a driver during the sessions?
During these, and you can tell in the outtakes that he had a large part in how the session moved. Not always, but in the later sessions when there wasn't anybody producing, quote unquote, mm-hmm. the Doors or him, they were the band. They got together and they played together. They created together. There's no reason why they couldn't record together without any problems.
Could you tell going into this project, the band had just come through a lot of turmoil, especially with the trials and the press and everything. Were they exhausted? Were they worn down? What was the mood of the band at that point?
Well, for LA Woman, they were very up because I always like to have the analogy. It was like getting out of school for summer vacation. No responsibilities, nobody telling you what to do. And you could just play in the sandbox. And that's what they did. And I did with them. There were 7 of us all together. You know, if you take the 4 of them and adding Jerry Scheff and Marc Benno, you know, and that was it. You know, it was fun. I mean, bringing equipment across the street from Elektra Studios, you know, setting it up. It was like kids getting together. Let's do a musical, you know.
Now, LA Woman was recorded. Correct me if I'm wrong here, but the session started in an actual studio, a Sunset Sound, and then the band requested the comfort of recording in their own rehearsal studio in their offices.
Not exactly.
Okay.
We went to Sunset Sound with Paul Rothchild to try and rekindle the spirit of 1966. The band wasn't enthusiastic. Paul was hurting tremendously from the loss of Janis Joplin emotionally. And he just was not thrilled with the songs or the approach. They were not thrilled with having him there to go through it one more time. And so we went to Sunset Sound, and they ran, after I got my sounds, they ran Riders, and I hit record on the 8-track. And Paul sat there with his head in his hands and said, like, this is terrible. It's cocktail jazz. I can't do this. I just went through a great experience, and emotionally, I'm tapped. I'm going to have to bow out. And that's what happened. So we all got together, we talked, we all had dinner together, came back to Sunset Sound, and they said, well, what should we do? And I said, where do you feel the most comfortable? And they said, in our rehearsal studio. Great. I'll get some gear and we'll record there. And they went, we can do that? And I said, yeah. And I said, how about a bass player? I said, Elvis Presley's bass player, Jerry Scheff. I've been working with him on Marc Benno, his album. And I said, in fact, it would be great to have Marc as well, so that Robbie wouldn't have to, he could be free to just play and not to overdub. And they loved it. Jim especially was thrilled about having Jerry Scheff. So that's how it happened. And then about 2 weeks later, we were recording.
That seems to be a very unique situation, recording outside of a studio for the time. Was it?
Yeah. You know, now it isn't, but it sure was then. But I mean, we used to do live recordings, you know, hire the record plant mobile truck or Fedco Audio Labs back east and, you know, go around and follow them. I mean, when I produced Steve Perry from, I wound up taking the truck to the Opera House in Boston and then to their rehearsal space way out in the country. So I mean, it wasn't unusual, but it wasn't the norm. I mean, we always went in the studio. And I mean, the advantage of not being in the studio was that you could, if you walked in the door and it wasn't feeling good, you could go home and come back later.
At that point in their career, I would imagine the Doors had sold enough records to where decisions they wanted to make like that, no one batted an eye on.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, if one of them said, you know, I'm not feeling it today, and they were going, oh, okay, well, you know, let us know when you're okay. But that didn't happen. Everybody was too enthusiastic about being there.
So during the sessions, I always think of Jerry Scheff in the bass player role, very similar to like Billy Preston with the Beatles.
That's a good parallel. That's a good parallel.
And just kind of seeing the, especially all the recent documentary conversations around Let It Be and whatnot, Billy Preston was also seen as a positive influence on the rest of the band. Kind of fresh blood, kept everyone on their best behavior.
That's exactly the way it was with both Jerry and Marc in the studio, and being out of the studio and just dealing with themselves. Their energy was a big up, huge up.
Was Jerry careful on bass lines that he perhaps wasn't doing something that maybe Ray would find difficult to do live on the keyboard?
Well, of course. Ray used to cut himself in half. There was the guy that on the right-hand side that did all the flourishes and all the chords and everything. And the guy on the left hand, he called him Lefty. And that was the guy that played the piano bass. But he was freed up on this album. He didn't have to do that live. I mean, we had a live bass player going back to the second album in the studio, so it wasn't new. Occasionally, we went to the piano bass. But, Ray still was boom, 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 boom. And if you listen to Riders on the Storm, that's ostensibly the bass line that Ray created in the demo, because that was kind of locked, because that was part of the atmosphere. So, no, Ray was focused on his creativity, on playing all the keyboards. I mean, he had a B3, he had a Fender Rhodes, he had a Fender Wurlitzer, he had his Vox, he had a Farfisa. I mean, he had all these instruments that were different. Sometimes he was playing two instruments, one left, right hand. But he allowed Jerry to do his thing. I mean, that's why he was there, was to bring his style and creativity to the mix and the freedom. And I know John loved it. I mean, John was in heaven.
But Ray would have had to play all that live after the fact, or they would have assumed that Ray would have to.
Yeah, if they ever gotten to play it live, yes.
Right.
No, not necessarily. I mean, there was very serious talk about asking Jerry to join the Doors.
Okay. How far did that conversation go?
Probably, but it was amongst them. I don't think they ever really talked to Jerry, but I know that they had mentioned it. But it didn't last too long because Jim passed away.
Right. Again, just hearing what you're saying and listening to the 50th anniversary, the outtakes, it does sound like Jim was quite the ringleader. And the songs entering the studio seemed to be pretty well baked. You could hear them kind of working out small parts here and there, but the structures of the songs were pretty much there. Certainly the bones were. Is that generally, when you recorded the Doors, how they entered the studio? Was there much written in the studio by the band?
Very little. When they were in the early days, and Jim was writing a lot, he wrote that flurry of 22 songs right off the bat, which were basically the first, second, and parts of the third album. I mean, they had been playing this stuff live in front of people. So when they came in the studio, it was a matter of documenting and getting a performance. But then, as time went by and they're playing larger venues, and they didn't have time to write or to woodshed, stuff did get created in the studio. And a good example of that is the Soft Parade album and most of Morrison Hotel. But, the guys had the songs.
Now, going into the Doors' debut album, as you were the engineer, what did you know about the band before they came in? Did you see them live? Were you aware of them? Zero.
I had no idea. All I know is there was a booking from Elektra for drums, piano, bass, organ, guitar, and vocal. That's all I knew.
Another day at work.
Well, not really. It was always a surprise. But I knew who the producer was. I knew Paul because he had produced the Tim Buckley album, the first album. And we did that together. And then I had been doing Love. So I was familiar with the Elektra approach. So if Elektra was booking something, I knew it was going to be different.
Right. And you seem to be have a lot of Elektra credits to your name. Is that just how it worked back then? You just worked for...
I don't know. I mean, at one time when rock and roll started to become part of Elektra, I had recorded about 25% of the catalog, you know, and which was great.
Were you
like to do it all over again?
Were you a fan of rock and roll going into it? Is that why you were picked?
No, I love jazz and popular music. I like novelty songs. You know, Stan Freberg, Deo, Spike Jones, you name it. I love that stuff. So, I mean, let's talk about music for a moment. Today's radio is narrowcasting. You have a hip hop station, you have a heavy metal station, you have an oldie station, you got this station, you got that's adult contemporary. And back in the day when we were recording, you had two stations here in LA, KFWB and KHJ. And they played everything. They went from Frank Sinatra to the Doors to Ella Fitzgerald to the Purple People Eater, you know, on and on and on. So the listeners had a wide variety of music in their bodies and in their heads. It wasn't just country. And so as a consequence, that's where the influence comes for me and for everybody else, because I loved everything. I love Peter Gunn, you know. I love West Coast jazz versus East Coast jazz, but later on developed a great liking for East Coast jazz. I mean, I've done a lot. I did with of jazz stuff over the years. So, you know, and as John Densmore and Charlie Watts, you know, basically ask well, you can't ask Charlie anymore, but they tell you they were jazz drummers in the middle of rock and roll. And that shows up in their playing because it's a different sensibility. And, you know, here you got Ray Manzarek, came from Chicago. He had the blues, but he had all this classical background. And he brought all that into it. And Robbie was into classical guitar, you know, as you've heard in Spanish Caravan. So, you know, there's all these influences. And Jim, I mean, if it's amazing if you listen to those outtakes, there's a couple things where he's doing Motown licks.
Yeah.
He's, you know, and as John said, you know, on a couple of things like on Changeling. I mean, it's James Brown, you know, as he said, it's like a couple of white guys trying to be black, you know. And so all those influences are there, and that's what makes it work. You know, had I brought in Pops Popwell, you know, if I had known him at that time, black bassist, who I brought into the Eddie Money sessions, I would have done it, because that would have brought that feel in, you know, or having the white bass player with a black drummer. You know, it's you mix it up and you get these different feels.
So that's really interesting, you said, because Jerry Scheff, with his experience with Elvis and playing that music, he does have those same influences, and he's kind of painted with the same brush.
Well, he's got the rockabilly, he's got it all, you know, and he played stand-up bass, jazz. He loved doing it. So, you know, it's what you grow up. I feel sorry for the kids today that they don't have this varied music to draw from.
Right.
And, I drive my wife crazy. I wake up in the morning, I start singing a novelty song or some crazy song. It's just, embedded there, and it influences what I do.
Mm-hmm. So that instinct that you've developed with novelty songs, can you find that in the Doors material somewhere?
Well, the Doors are very theatrical,
Mm-hmm.
long songs, the end, when music's over, Soft Parade, LA Woman, and Writers. They like these little dramatic epics, and they looked at their music visually.
When Paul decided to opt out of the LA Woman sessions, were you the heir apparent? Was that pretty much a foregone conclusion?
Never thought of it that way.
Yeah.
It's like you asking me what my favorite song is. I don't.
Okay.
All of them.
But when Paul pulled himself out of the sessions, it was like, okay, Bruce is here. Bruce is going to be, he's been here since the beginning.
Well,
he knows the band really well.
I mean, we didn't talk about that. We just did what wanted to make the record.
Right.
Get in the studio and have some fun.
Robbie's book, I'm assuming you've read his new book. He, I think, really shapes the Doors legend quite well. He and I spoke about the fantastical stories and the mythology that's happened over the last few decades. And his book seems to capture a more real version of that. In it, he talks about Jim at times being a handful, particularly at parties. But your experience with Jim was he was very professional in the studio, not just for LA Woman, but for all the sessions.
We'll be back after these messages.
Hey, have you checked out AudiofileUSA.com lately? There's been a major new website redesign, and now it's even easier to search and dig for deals. AudiofileUSA.com has over 42,000 used vinyl titles in stock, all excellent and near mint condition. They sell nothing but the best condition records. And AudiofileUSA.com is not just for rare and collectible records, it's got something for everyone. All genres, from punk to pop to jazz to classical to metal to psych and more. Head over to AudiofileUSA.com, dig for the deals, fill up your cart, and use discount code The Vinyl Guide to save 10% off your purchase. There's something for everyone at AudiofileUSA.com. And I know that Groove Washer makes the world's best record cleaner. Hundreds of people around the world have tried it and given Groove Washer top ratings online, including Rolling Stone magazine, 5 out of 5 stars for vinyl record care. But have you seen the new Groove Washer Groove Guard record sleeves? Now you can slide your freshly cleaned record into an archival quality sleeve for short or long-term storage. I mean, why are you going to clean your records only to slide them back into the same old dirty sleeve? That's like showering and putting your dirty clothes back on. Head over to GrooveWasher.com, grab a record cleaning kit and some Groove Guard record sleeves, now at a super low introductory price, and it gets even lower with discount code VinylGuide10 at checkout. That's Groove Washer Groove Guard record sleeves, GrooveWasher.com, discount code VinylGuide10.
Now we return to the program, already in progress.
No limits.
Robbie's book, he talks about Jim at times being a handful, particularly at parties. But your experience with Jim was he was very professional in the studio, not just for LA Woman, but for all the sessions?
No. There were times when he was totally inebriated, could barely stand up. And but that was part of, I'm now looking back at it as not wanting to have that kind of control on him. He was not one for control. You got to look at where he came from. His father was an admiral, in the Navy. And because of Jim, his exploits, it kept his father from becoming a full-fledged 3 or 4 star general in the Navy, or admiral, excuse me. And later on, his father really respected what his son had done. But no, it had things not been the way they were because of Miami and whatnot, or even leading up to it, I'm not so sure that he would have been out of control every time. If he had more control in the studio of what was going down, might have been a different story. But that's, it's hard to say. He's not here. I can't ask him.
So we've heard Robbie and Ray and John's side of the day that they learned about Jim's death. What was your story? What was your experience that day?
Disappointed that it happened, especially when, you have to realize this, being a celebrity is not all that great. You think it is, because when you're in front of the audience and they all cheer and they send you all that love, it's pretty overwhelming. There's virtually no human that can match that, or a dog or a cat or whatever. I've had artists tell me that, when they go on stage, they don't know, they say they don't know who the audience is coming to see. Are they coming to see them, or are they coming to see this thing? And that got to Jim. And that's why he'd just get wrecked and go out there and go crazy, because that's what the people wanted to see. So they thought. And same thing coming into the studio. I'm glad that I was in the position I was in, that I didn't have to be out there, because it's painful. You talk to artists, it's painful not having any privacy. Mm-hmm. And some can deal with it better than others. Jim did his through drink.
Mm-hmm. So the phone call came in that day. Was there immediate disbelief? Was there a need
well, we didn't know for sure until Bill flew to Paris and said, yeah, it's real.
Okay. So there was a couple days in there where it was maybe not.
48 hours, within 48 hours.
And I believe the band was already in the process of demoing or even recording what became Other Voices.
They were practicing and, trying to think ahead that he was going to come back and make another record, because they knew that they weren't going to tour anymore.
Okay, so touring was off the docket.
He didn't want to go out there. It was like the monkey with a monkey grinder, mm-hmm. Turn it. And that's why LA Woman is such a good album, because he had that freedom. He didn't feel put upon. Nobody telling him what to do, what time to be there. He could just be. And it was like it was originally when the four guys got together and formed a band.
So were you involved in any of the recordings of Jim's poetry?
No. Well, I was at one point, but I don't remember exactly which ones. He did the majority of the stuff with John Haney, who lives in Tasmania, Australia. Ooh. And he's physically in not too good a shape.
This audience is record nerds,
mm-hmm.
as shared earlier. There's a particular Rare Doors record I wanted to see if you have any memories of. It's the mono version of the debut album.
Mm-hmm.
It was apparently pressed at the Monarch pressing plant in Los Angeles. And in this particular pressing, in the end, in the mono mix, you can really hear Jim during the end, the Oedipal kind of, mm-hmm. Portion of the end. You could hear him cursing, and you could hear him being very lively in the studio. That pressing or that recording is highly sought out because it's very, very rare.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to know, do you have any information or story or awareness even of this mono mix being?
Well, we have the mono mix, and we put it out this year. Remastered it on vinyl, and it is exactly off that tape, the master tape.
So
There
the
isn't
same
another
exact
one.
mono mix from 66, 66 would be the same one.
Yep.
Okay. So there's no difference. Are all the tapes accounted for? Is there anything missing from the Doors archive?
Love Forever changes 8-track master. That's not the Doors, but the answer is no. We have all the tapes. We have a place called Hollywood Vaults on Seward in Hollywood. That is the beyond the state of the art place to put in tapes, film, even guitars, things like that. They're in the vault when you go in. When I go in there, about the most I can spend in there, and it's not all that cold, but it is cold. The air is filtered in such a way that you have to go out and take a pee after 10 minutes. So you're going in, out, in, out, in, out, and but the tapes when they come out of there, they're beautiful. We don't have to bake them. We don't have to do anything to them.
Mm-hmm.
Just play them.
But per what you mentioned earlier, each play, there's a little bit of decay.
Well,
in there.
If the heads haven't been demagnetized and cleaned, and got to be very, very careful. I mean, this is not heresy, but in the early days of digital, which I was an earlier proponent of, I'd bring a 2-track Sony system into the studio and have it running side by side to an analog 2-track.
Mm-hmm.
And we'd mix to both simultaneously and then A/B them. And they immediately playing, after the mix, boom, play them. And the analog came back. It sounded great, right?
Mm-hmm.
Half an hour later, we do the same thing. All of a sudden, we're noticing the transparency in the analog is disappearing. And then maybe a couple of hours later, and the digital never changed.
Right.
And so it's a fact that the magnetic particles in their inert state, whether it's either vertical or horizontal or, on an angle, they want to revert to that state, original state. And the ones that go the fastest are the high frequencies and the air and the mix and the sharpness. So what we're doing today is just trying to get it as far close as we can back to its original state and then cut new lacquer masters. And we're able to cut new lacquer masters better than we did in the day because we're not worried about a mono bleed. What we used to have to do was they had a filter that would combine anything below a certain frequency on the left and right to the center so that a cutter head wouldn't lift off. Well, we've improved the computers and everything that operate the lathe to the point we don't do that anymore. Mm-hmm. So when we do vinyl today, there's better left-right separation. There's better center. Everything's just more like what we had in the studio. So when I look at an old pressing, going back, they're not as good as what I can do today. They just aren't. And we have better quality vinyl too.
Mm-hmm.
The only shame is that vinyl is becoming so super popular these days, getting it pressed. It's very difficult. I mean, at this point, there aren't really any great plants here in the United States.
There's a few back east that I'm aware of. I don't know how they rate in comparison to some of the ones you may be used to. There's RTI, there's Furnace.
Well, RTI is out here. It's here. It's about 20 minutes from my house.
Are you a vinyl consumer? Do you listen to records still?
I have a minimum of 4,000 discs.
Oh, okay.
I kept everything. I never got rid of anything. And I don't know how your record collection is. How is your record collection organized?
Oh boy. You're assuming it's organized.
Yeah.
I've got it's grown organically. I've got my upstairs collection, which is where my nice system is. And then I have my office. collection, which is a lot of jumbled up
Mhm.
kind of here and there, a lot of stuff I get from press and whatnot. We're in the process of actually doing a whole home renovation where all the records can be in one place. Ideally, I would like them alphabetical because I have a very difficult time finding titles. But I would probably separate like pop music from, say, jazz, and keep a lot of it in my head where some of the categorization is. But it's not all in one place. It's scattered throughout, and it's becoming a real problem.
Well, I've always had mine organized by record company
Oh, okay.
because I always knew the artists who were on the label. Atlantic, Atco, Brunswick, Decca, Elektra, RCA, Camden, Dot,
Right.
you name it, Warner's, Reprise. So I always knew, I know which artists are on what label.
So what if an artist moves from one label to another? What do you do?
I would I'd still keep them on their home label.
Okay. All right.
Like Aretha Franklin. She had Columbia records on Columbia, but she was on Atlantic. And that's where all her big stuff was.
So she's best known for Atlantic, so that becomes the main one.
That's a home base, yeah.
Okay. And are all the labels alphabetized, so Atlantic comes before Brunswick?
Of course.
And so how often how much time a day do you spend with your records?
Now?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, none.
None?
I'm so busy mixing, I don't have time to do that. I hate to admit it, that I stream a lot off of Apple Music, and
it's not a crime.
And it's not a crime because, I want to hear some Hawaiian music, slack guitar. I'll go there, but if I want to seriously listen to something off of vinyl, I go to my studio.
Okay.
Because there I can play it as it needs to be played. And we used to put on the back of the albums, play it loud. I can play it loud.
Are all your records in the same room, or is it one big kind of area where music collection?
Right now they're all in very large boxes. All alphabetized. If you saw my boxes, same thing with all my video discs, because I had a large collection of 12-inch video discs and stuff.
Oh, laser discs. Yeah. Okay. All right. So do you still have like all the test pressings and things, acetates from back in the day?
I have a lot of test pressings. I have the acetates and the test pressing and the final pressings. And I try to, especially in the case of the Doors, I have them so I can refer to what we did, 10 years ago or 30 years ago and go back and listen. And that's why I can say without a doubt that the new stuff we're mastering is better.
Right.
Because I have original pressings.
Do you still shop for records? Do you still go out and buy records, or you think you got
Occasionally I will.
What are your favorite shops in LA?
Well, there aren't. There's one here in Ventura that's really cool. That has lots of old stuff. And the trick is finding a pressing that hasn't been beaten to death. Because I'm so used to now when I get a test pressing, they're virginal. And for your fans out there, there's one thing that they should know. In the record pressing business, pressing plants are worried about how the disc is going to look because they put it in the sleeve, you take it out of the sleeve, it scuffs the disc, doesn't look so hot, And so what they do is they polish the masters, the metal stampers, so that won't happen. No rough edges. And you can tell a great pressing. You can pick it up and hold it up to the light and you see it really just lights up and sparkles, and you can really see the grooves and the shininess of it.
Mm-hmm.
If it's been polished, which a majority of them are, they're just flat, which means you can go in and out of the sleeve and no scuffs. And I really don't care about the scuffs. I care about how it sounds, because when they polish, they reduce the high frequencies.
Wow.
They're burnishing the discs. So I've gotten Rhino, who does this, to tell all the plants, at least on all our product or anything that I'm involved in,
mm-hmm.
the order goes to the plants: do not polish. If you do, you're going to have to do it all over again.
Wow. Okay. So,
well,
no, that's great. I didn't even know that was an option.
Well, it makes a difference
yeah.
It makes a difference on how it sounds,
mm-hmm.
and how quiet it is. So,
what are the pressing plants that you favor the most?
Well, the one in Germany, but I can't think of their name right now, who just did
Palace?
No.
Okay.
I can't think of their name, but RTI is really good.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, but you have to, with any of the plants, specify how you want it treated.
Mm-hmm. Do you get involved in the lacquer cutting? Are you there for the cut?
Oh, sure. I mean, I used to cut lacquers myself. I mean, I came from the school, all of us, that our end product was vinyl.
Mm-hmm.
So we would cut our own masters. In the case of when it went to stereo, I wasn't doing that very much, even though we did have a system at Elektra. Bob McLeod, when he mastered a couple of the Doors albums. In fact, I think he mastered LA Woman originally. And different systems have tube cutting, and some are solid state. When I did the first 4 albums of Doors albums, I did use a tube cutting system with Bernie, and some with Doug Sachs at Mastering Lab. We did all the albums at 45 RPM, but it was all a tube cutting system, two playback amplifiers on the 2-track machine to try and get as close as we could to the original sound.
Mm-hmm.
But in today's world, we can do better. It isn't that important to be then.
Mm.
What's important is to get the music out as good as possible. That really relates to what we did in the studio. Because that's the goal. I want you to be able to hear in your home, if you got a good enough system, what we were doing. And both myself and Bernie and Doug and whoever else is cutting lacquers should basically be invisible.
So for this LA Woman, this 50th anniversary one, were you able to cut by tube? I mean, is it your dream setup? You're able to?
Well, no, because what I'm doing these days, and one of the reasons I'm doing digital so much, is because I use a system called Plangent, and what they're able to do is to take the recorded bias frequency that's on the analog tape
mm-hmm.
and resolve that. So literally, the 2-track machine is not there. What it's doing, it's running exactly at the speed of the multi-track master.
Mm.
And the first Doors album is a good example. I'm sure you've read about it, where I said that between the first song and the last song on each side, it slows down a quarter of a tone. And that's because the 4-track half-inch machine, when it, there wasn't very much tape on the left side, it's put like a brake and it slowed the machine down. And it's identical on the stereo and the mono mixes. So what I'm able to do is to take all the 2 tracks from Strange Days onward and resolve the speed. So that's why we're transferring everything at 384, 32-bit, so they can really see that problem and able to get it on speed. Our goal, the 4-track master for the first album runs dead on. It runs fast. I mean, the end is running so slow. It's to me, it's almost hard to listen to, because it's when I A/B it against, like when I just did the Atmos versions, that it's so flat, it's hard to switch back and forth to listen to the balance and see what I was up doing. So we're doing that. So in the digital domain, it's a matter of archiving and true restoration and being able to reproduce it better than we could then. So, I know there are some people that are going, you shouldn't be screwing with it. Fuck you if you can't take a joke,
Well, there's all those old copies that they could pick up if they want anyway.
Hey, if they want it bad enough, they can go listen to their old thing. And if it's clicking and popping and giving them grief, enjoy.
Yeah. So that's actually the case then for just about all the material that was recorded then. I mean, it's not just the.
Well, yeah. I mean, that goes on with almost any artist.
Right.
I mean, I know that Neil Young's done a bunch. The Grateful Dead has done everything to get their stuff speed accurate. So this is not something that Jamie Howarth has been just doing. It's been going on. Yeah. And the CDs, everything was these mixes I did on the 2 extra CDs, and on the vinyl I did them at 192.24, the multi-track, and then mixed them, and then I turned them through MQA, which is master quality authentication, into on the CD. If you have a decoder, they'll play back at 176.24 off your CD. So you're only hearing a little piece of it if you're on a normal CD. Right. The 176.24 is very close to the masters, the 192s. So if you can get a decoder, which are not very expensive, and plug it into the digital output of your CD player, play through it, and A/B against the regular CD output versus the output of the MQA D to A, you'll be shocked.
So I'm curious, Bruce, what do you think is the future for vinyl? Fast forward 10, 20 years. Will vinyl still be in all the shops?
I have no idea. I mean, right now, it's popular because for lots of different reasons. For years, I've been complaining about streaming and CDs in general. The people, my question was, when's the last time you sat down and listened to an entire album?
Me? Well, personally,
no, all the time. No, but I mean, I'm to anybody, and generally they'll say, "Oh, I haven't done that." I mean, they just put on the music and it goes from song to song, and they don't put on albums. When I was teaching at USC, University of Southern California, and I remember bringing an album to class, and out of the 14 students, none of them had ever seen a record before. And this is not long ago. I mean, even down to then saying, okay, how many of you know the Beatles? They knew who Jim Morrison was. One hand went up, and I said, okay, how is that? He said, well, I think my parents used to listen to them. That was until they became available streaming on iTunes. Then that all changed. So it's, a lot of people have discovered vinyl. It's hip. It's a pain in the ass. It's a miserable format, but it sounds good. The outside 2 inches sound great. But it's the whole thing of taking the disc out of there putting it lovingly on the turntable, cleaning your stylus, putting the needle on the record, dropping it, and reading the liner notes and holding that piece of artwork in your hands. And there's nothing like it. So to answer your question, I hope for a long time it's still hangs around.
The ritual.
Yeah.
So you've had the pleasure of being able to hear the master tapes direct and the vinyl as comparison. How much do you think is lost between those master tapes you hear and that beautiful vinyl that gets pressed, that modern vinyl?
Well, you know how many generations there are down from the original. I'm talking about the original multi-track to the original stereo is one generation, right?
Right.
Then you go cut a lacquer, 2 generations. Goes to the plant. They make a father, 3 generations. Go make a mother, 4. Then they go make a stamper, that's 5. Then they make a pressing, that's 6. The fact that it even resembles the original thing after 6 generations down is amazing. So I don't expect it to be exact, but I'm with good quality pressings and being careful about what you're putting in and cutting carefully, you can get pretty damn close.
And not polishing the
mothers.
So would you say, what, 5-10% maybe? Is it very perceptible for you?
Well, I can hear it, yeah. I think if I was able to, in your room, to bring down an acetate that we had cut, which would be the same generation as the lacquer master, played you a test pressing, and then played you the lacquer, you've got to go, wow.
Yeah.
I mean, even in digital, there's digital generations that I hear. We've always heard them.
Final question with Doors. With the archive, is there anything left in there? You guys have been doing a lot of 50-year releases. You've visited a lot of live shows. Anything left in there?
I'm take the Fifth Amendment on this one.
Oh, okay. All right. So I see that as a hopeful answer.
Well, I mean, believe me, when people hear the Atmos mixes, they're going to hear stuff they never heard before.
Bruce, thank you so much for spending time here on the Vinyl Guide. You've brought in so much new information. We really appreciate that. And, of course, the work you've done is absolutely fascinating. I'd love to have you back on to talk about Zappa, to talk about MC5, Tim Buckley. There's so much more to get to. So I hope you'll come on the show one more time, and at least one more time to have a vinyl chat about those, won't you?
My pleasure.
Wonderful. Bruce, thanks again. And everyone, make sure you check out the 50th anniversary deluxe edition of The Doors' L.A. Woman. It's always been one of my favorite Doors albums, and I've been listening to the Atmos versions. I don't have my vinyl yet, but it will be available on December 3rd. Pick up a copy of the vinyl. It's on Rhino. Bother your local record store if they don't have it in stock. Have them stock it and pick it up because it sounds absolutely gorgeous. The CDs are also fascinating, just hearing the songs come together, the evolution. You hear them working out the bossa nova section of L.A. Woman and, how that all comes together. There's a beautiful booklet involved as well. So again, the 50th anniversary, The Doors' L.A. Woman, December 3rd. 1 vinyl remaster, 3 CDs, additional materials, outtakes, and the booklet. Again, Bruce, thank you so much for coming on the Vinyl Guide.
Yeah, buy as many as you can. We still have to eat.
Hey, it makes a perfect Christmas gift for your friends and enemies.
and save your ears. Don't play it too loud. Don't hurt yourself.
Excellent. Thank you so much,
right.
Bruce.
Thank you all.
Take care, mate. All right.
Cheers.
All right, there we go, Mr. Bruce Botnick. Got to have him back on the show. Heaps more to talk about. But of course, today we focused on the Doors and LA Woman in particular. That LA Woman box set is fantastic. So again, grab a copy of that 50th anniversary box set from your local record shop or store.rhino.com or wherever you get your records. It's a pretty great set. All right, and as mentioned earlier, I want to give a shout out and a thanks to all the patreon.com/Vinyl Guide community who supports and pledges $5 or more each month. I'm going to read you all down, no particular order. Going to start with you, Sean Kelly. Thanks for your support. Ben Dixon, thank you so much, mate. Corey Baker, you rock. Sam Cohen, thank you so much for all your support. Much appreciated. Michael Howerton, you rock. Stephen Chase, you are the king. Jay, you only identify yourself with one letter, but the appreciation is the same size as people with 3 names, like William Ryan Baker. Thanks, William, for your support. Alan Lustowska, you rock. Derek King, thank you so much. Carolina Hidalgo, thank you for your continued support. Eric Lands, much appreciated. Gregory Plass, thank you, sir. Dan T, you rock. David Messer, you rock as well. Matthew Rusick, thank you so much for your support. Daniel Johnson, awesome, appreciated. Marc Aravello, muchos gracias. Seth Madij, I hope I pronounced that name right, but much appreciated. Mark Dietz, thank you for your support. Scott, I really appreciate the support. Thank you. Andrew Mills, thank you. Paul Von Inns, thank you for your support. Ian Wobble, man, you rock. Thanks, Ian. Ray and Rowena and Danny only identify themselves with their first names like Sting and Madonna. I really appreciate your support. I evened Mobic. I hope I pronounced that right. Thanks for your support. CJ Marciano, thank you for your Patreon support. Jed Bedouin, you rock. Mark Valoria, I appreciate your support, mate. Deborah Enos Clark, I'm so appreciative that you're supporting the podcast. Thank you for that. David Shanks, thanks for being a Patreon pal. Brian Kane, much appreciated. Jeremy Price, woohoo, thank you. Rob Freeman, you rock. Ryan Nims, much appreciated. Rich Lipenscu, thanks for your support. Christopher Theas, thank you, sir. Rob Giles, you're the man. And Parker Macy, you are handsome and clever and very generous. A huge shout out to TJ. Thank you, TJ, for supporting the Vinyl Guide. Gene Bartram, thank you so much, mate. Aaron Goodrich, thank you for being a supporter. Miguel Alvarez, you absolutely rock. Patrick Thompson, mate, that is so awesome. Thank you so much. Tommy No Shoes. I love that. It cracks me up every time I see that name. Tommy, you're awesome. Thank you. Christian Naes, it's a huge help for supporting the Vinyl Guide. Thank you so much. Jason Jabra, you absolutely rock. Mike McGlinnan, thank you for supporting the show. Bruno Bissonette, you absolutely rock. Tom Grover Beery, you're the king of rock. There is none higher. And Chuck Boyd, sucker MCs should call you sire. Kevin Mosher, thank you for supporting the Vinyl Guide. David Phillips, again, much appreciated, mate. Reg, really appreciate your support here. Thank you for that. John Lilliquist, thanks for your support. Jen DiEugenio, you absolutely rock. Women in Vinyl is wonderful. Thanks for your support. Nicholas Poulot, thanks for your support. Jose Marcel Berto de Souza, muchas gracias, mi amigo. And the rest of yous, really appreciate it. There's a whole bunch of people that support us for a couple of bucks a month. That is hugely appreciated as well. So everyone, thank you so much for being Patreon supporters. I'm going to start doing this a little bit more regularly, but I really want to share my appreciation for each and every one of you who takes your time and backs it up with a little bit of dough to help support this show. Thank you so much, everyone. And that's it for this episode of The Vinyl Guide. Thank you so much for tuning in. Please share these episodes on your social media. Share them on Facebook, tweet them out on Twitter. Leave us a positive review. That is always appreciated and helpful. And we'll be back shortly with a brand new episode. So until we talk next time, get out there and buy some records, people. Cheers.
That's it for this episode of The Vinyl Guide. Send your thoughts to Nate at thevinylguide.com or follow or tag us on Instagram at Vinyl Guide. Until next time, keep spinning.